Hello, Matthew. My name is Kargl-Simard. I'm President and CEO of Adventus Mining Corporation. Adventus TSX-V listed, about 100 million market cap, developing the El Domo copper gold VMS project. We're currently in detail engineering. We're about 7 to 9 months away from the start of full-scale construction. We've put together project financing, and we believe we are years ahead of the pack in terms of the next greenfields copper development project into construction.
Good. You're the kind of company I want to be speaking to. Hey, we saw the recent announcement by that the president of Ecuador had signed a pre-legislative consultation decree. I'm not sure everyone actually understood what that meant. I think it's positive because you've gone and drawn down some more money. So maybe start off with what the decree means and then why you feel quite positive about it.
Yeah, the last two mines, the only two major mines in production in Ecuador are the Mirador copper mine and Frutal Norte. So when those projects got permitted, their consultation process was the government went to local communities, presented the environmental impact assessment, and then left and the president put a rubber stamp on the EIA. There was no form of consultation. Since those projects got permitted and put in production, the Constitutional Court in Ecuador has had some outcomes which require the consultation process to be more robust. And so the government here, the president just signed this decree, is starting to put into law what that new process looks like. And so that decree signed a week or so ago sets the path for that new consultation process. It's not too much more involved, but it is more involved, and there's an element of the community being able to provide some feedback on the technical elements of the project. We've been waiting for that to put out this release and officially state that the second part of our EIA permitting process has kicked off, and there's a loose timing around this consultation process, which we've indicated as 7 to 9 months. It's non-binding, and because this is now signed, it's given us the confidence to take our early deposit from Wheaton Precious Metals today of $13 million to fund the final detail engineering and pre-construction works before full-scale construction.
Right. Okay. I need to understand this because I think it's really important that this isn't a case of. I want to understand how this document makes you feel confident, but the government is under no obligation to do what? I mean, where's the kind of security for you in this, other than this is the most positive that the government has made in the past sort of 18 to 24 months? So
Adventus Mining is taking a risk here by advancing this project through uncertain times, through detail engineering, bringing on the construction team, all that good stuff. We're taking a risk here by taking this Wheaton money now without certainty of when our final environmental permit is going to come in. But we feel very confident the environmental permit will come in the next 18 months. We think it's going to be the next 7 to 9 months. If it's delayed, we think it's still within that 18 months. And we're taking a bet on the copper price and a positioning of our project. Without this decree signed by the president, and it was on the desk of the president since earlier in the summer, the entire country was paralyzed from a development perspective. This is not a decree only for the mining sector. It's a decree that covers any industrial project. It could be a community wanting a water treatment plant to give potable water to their citizens. It could be an oil and gas installation. It could be a mining installation. It could be a hydroelectric power plant. Anything that required an environmental permit is tied to this recent decree. And so since the summer, the country has been paralyzed from that development perspective. Now we finally are starting the process on getting these consultations going. So the length of time it's going to take is only prescribed from the government. We're taking that risk.
Right. Okay. But then so will everyone else have to do that? Because this is like someone who's got frightened of height. The president is like somebody's frightened of heights. So would you take a step forward to the edge of the cliff for, doing your bungee jump? Because he's been extremely nervous and reticent to sign this, but has the country been sort of paralyzed? Has there been a sort of like log jam building up here where he's been forced into doing this? I mean, what's he nervous of? Is there like a massive environmental pressure groups affecting his decision making?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with any specific industry or a specific project. President Lasso got elected with a very fractured government. And so he has had to learn how to govern through a polarized assembly. There were protests in June from the indigenous, which also challenged his power. And so since June, he's had to navigate dealing with the indigenous, making sure that there are policies that work for multiple parties that have different views. So I would say the politics of the country have trumped, in a way, the business of the country. And as the fall has come around, there have been resolutions to some of these differences and some of these issues with parties. And so Lasso feels more confident to move forward with some of these decrees. Not only our consultation decree, there was also a referendum decree being signed covering various popular aspects of the country. So businesses, I guess you could say business is returning to government and to the president, but it's taken 5 to 6 months to work through. And as a result, our permits have been delayed by 5 to 6 months.
Okay, well that's good news. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of what ifs in here. Okay, so you've kind of got the money side of things nailed down, which was conversations we've had in the past, and the project itself, in terms of 5% copper equivalent and 14-year life of mine and whatever it was, 120, 130 ASIC numbers. You kind of managed the business of advancing your business. This permitting issue, let's say that happens. Let's say that works out for you. Why do you kind of position yourself as significantly advanced compared to, other kind of copper developers that people have got option of looking at? I mean, what's so great about your company?
Well, the thing that stands out the most is all the things you mentioned: low ASIC, high grades, quick payback. All of that has resulted in us being able to finance our project years before the start of construction, or at least a year before the start of construction, on reasonable terms. Most copper projects, as you know, are porphyry projects, cost billions of dollars. Junior developers have no chance of arranging the money. A bunch of our VMS peers might have $400 or $500 million price tags. More challenging, ours is only a $250 million price tag. So we've been able to arrange the money, and by arranging the money, also stay aggressive on the pre-construction timeline, which is a heavy amount of building the construction team, which we've done. I don't think many of our investors realize how good of a construction team we've been able to put together, but also advance the detailed engineering phase. So we expect to be 60 to 100% done detailed engineering, depending on the aspect of the project, before we break ground, which is going to significantly de-risk the construction efforts and also any cost creep during construction. So most companies, most juniors, will wait for their permit to come in place to then arrange financing, to then do detailed engineering. We've been doing everything almost in parallel. And as a result of that, having financing, having a construction team, doing permitting in parallel, and detailed engineering, we have created a significant head start over our peers, call it, who, if you want to point to certain peers, are probably just in the feasibility study stage, let alone everything else I mentioned.
Right. Okay. So, and I've got to ask this because, companies where you are, who have been through, done the economic study phase, have been just hit long and hard by inflation, supply chain issues, and all the other difficulties you mentioned around, in permits and environmental studies, etc. What are you confident around pricing at the moment? Because I think what you've got to do is kind of you kind of got to deliver some kind of good news into the marketplace. If I go look at you now, you're probably, the stock's sort of where it was, April 2020, right? So we're 2.5 years later. despite advancing your company, despite doing all the things that you're doing in terms of building teams and and raising the money, etc., the market's not valuing you at the moment. So how do you change that?
So I think the main questions from investors are around permits. So we addressed a little bit of that, and we've just started the momentum not only on the governmental decree here, but also the investment protection agreement that I'm sure we'll talk about later on. Some of the secondary permits are going to be announced here, approved in short order. So I think that's giving confidence to some shareholders, and the stock has doubled here over the last month. The other part of it is as you say, what is the final capital cost? How much more money do we potentially need to raise to put this in production? One of the outcomes of a paralyzed country not building anything is that there's very little inflation. And Lundin Gold, in their latest quarterly, talked about this. There's a reason why Lundin Gold's AISC costs have not moved at all and are the lowest 10% in the world, because they're not seeing a lot of inflation. When we got quotes for the feasibility study for capital items, we had an Ecuadorian group, in most cases 2 or 3, for every significant aspect of the project. So there's a lot of captive knowledge and labor in Ecuador ready to go on a project like us. Our biggest item for the project is our mining contractor and mining fleet. We didn't go with an Ecuadorian group there. We went with a group called Stracon, very well-respected group out of Peru. They did Constancia, Cobre Panama, Shahuindo, etc. They have our entire mining fleet sitting in yards in Peru ready to go on our project. So in terms of long lead items or getting that up to speed so we can fit our timeline, we're in very good shape. So it's a mix of low inflation, long lead items, i.e. mining equipment ready to go, small project, significant infrastructure. And as we move forward to the final control budget in April of next year, we're starting to get some pricing power as a company, because the projects in the queue in Latin America in particular have completely dried up over the next few years. We've now become a very important project to pick your name contractor, and prices are starting to drop as well.
Okay. Well, I'm sort of intrigued. And if I look at your shareholder register, I mean, it's like, what, 19, 20% retail. So in terms of the kind of more emotional decision, in trading, should we call it, it's not a big portion of your share register. The institutional guys are in this for the long term, and they're into it for the copper thematic, clearly. But even they must be asking you about timing, about your confidence with regards to the Ecuadorian government and their kind of commitment to mining. And you've said pretty much the same thing you said today to them, have you?
Absolutely. The government has decided that our project's the next one to get built, and they have thrown all their resources to help us get there.
Well, tell me about that. That's a big statement, right? Tell me about that. They've decided yours is the next one to get built, and they've thrown resources at it. But the permitting process there's no shortcuts. There's no favors being done here. So what have they said, or what can you share with us to give us the same level of confidence that you have that they want you to get into production?
Well, I don't think there's any surprise that we would be top of the pack with having the financing in place and the teams, et cetera, and our relationship with the government. But I can tell you, when it comes to some of the secondary permits, the government is in constant contact with us and moving those permits forward on a daily basis. When it comes to security for our project, they're vouching their security forces to help us through construction. The biggest thing, though, I would say, is this investment protection agreement. So this is a very strong agreement globally. And what it does is it protects our historical and future investment with Ecuador's balance sheet. In the history of Ecuador, only 2 projects have had such an agreement signed in the mining business, and both are in production, Frutal Norte and Mirador. So we're the third one. What does that mean for the government? They believe that this project will pass all the environmental tests, will receive all of the permits, will receive the support of all levels of government, and will get built. And that's a big chunk of money that they're betting on this project.
Okay. You've used the word betting a lot in this conversation, and I know you're betting you'll get it over the line. When do you think the market's going to give you credit? Are you going to sort of throw Lassonde curve at me here, or is it a bit more simple than that?
The question is, what is truly the trough of Lassonde curve? Is it halfway through construction, or is it through this no man's land of permitting? I don't think we'll see the 28 cents a share we saw last month again, because the momentum on the permits is really starting to build. I mentioned this decree, the investment protection agreement. We got 4 secondary permits we need to start construction. We expect 2 of those 4 water related to come in over the next few months. And then you're going to start getting some more of these major contracts in place for the project, leading to that control budget in April or May of next year. But basically, the momentum has really started. And with more of these secondary permits coming in, I think people will get confident that this thing really can start construction in a big way this summer.
Right. And what do you do about your partner, Salazar, and all of this? I know they have not had a good time of it, and they kind of, try to track you, but I'm not sure they're even managing to do that at the moment. Have you got options there to take more of from them?
The Salazars have been great partners to us. Communication is great. We've become friends with them, so it's an open book with them. Over the last 5 years of our joint venture relationship, there are times where on a ARB basis, they've been more expensive and us cheaper, and vice versa. So we were much cheaper, I would say, going into October. Now we're probably a little bit more expensive, or kind of along lines with them. Our agreements are in good standing. I'm happy with them. In due course, it probably makes sense to consolidate the ownership of the project for lots of reasons. But there's no rush. We'll figure it out in due course.
Okay. Well, Christian, I appreciate you coming on and updating us, and mostly really kind of reinforcing the kind of importance of that legislative consultation decree. I think it's possibly bigger than most people realize. So good luck with the rest of the things that you've got to deliver, and we'll see you in 2023.
Thank you, Matthew.